A new poll by NBC News shows that President Biden's approval rating has fallen to an all-time low, and about 70% of respondents said that the country is heading on the wrong track. NBC surveyed 1,000 adults. 40% said they approve of the job Biden is doing. 55% said they disapprove of the job he's doing. That's a 16% uptick in disapproval from about the same time last year. The poll also showed that respondents have mostly negative sentiments toward the Democratic and the Republican Party. This particular poll showed that former President Trump and President Biden were essentially in a dead heat in terms of their favorability. Many Democrats are now trying to ditch the slogan, "Defund the police." President Biden has changed messaging and is calling for more funding of the police. But some are saying the funding he's calling for pertains to community policing, which is part of the anti-police woke ideology. Yesli Vaga, who's running for Congress in Virginia, has spent years in law enforcement. She continues to serve Prince William County Sheriff's Department. We had a chance to speak with her. Here's part of our interview. Yesli Vaga, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I want to ask you about President Biden's budget, which includes money for the police. And is this a sign that the Democrats are moving away from the calls to defund the police?
Look, this is just further confirmation of what the results of their polling shows. It shows that defunding the police has been a disaster for them. We have one crisis after another, to include crime that is skyrocketing, and folks are tired of it. And so this is Joe Biden trying to bail out his friends, to include Abigail Spanberger, who's on the chopping block this fall. That's exactly what this is.
There's a lot of talk about community policing, funding for community policing in this bill. How does that, or does that directly help frontline police officers?
Look, it's going to take a long time for officers to actually get out there and do what they were doing. I can tell you that as a law enforcement officer myself, one of the things that I loved tremendously was to park my cruiser, get out and engage with folks in the community. That's really community policing at its core. But when you demonize the brave men and women who put their life on the line, year after year, as we've seen with this administration, it's going to be incredibly difficult for folks to get out there and to want to partake in real community policing. You can't demonize folks and expect for folks to be willing to get out there and engage folks when you have cameras and when you have the radical left constantly attacking police officers.
So what measures do you think could be put in place right now to curb this record skyrocketing in crime throughout the country?
Well, first off, we have to be serious about actually putting funding towards really hiring police officers. I can tell you here that at the local level, in my capacity as supervisor, we have a budget that's being proposed, $100 million in new spending, but not one new police officer is going to be hired. And so if we're serious about funding police departments across the nation, we have to ensure that those funds are going to actually hiring officers, because what we need right now are boots on the ground to try to deter some of the crime that we're seeing from happening, and then to further grow as a community and come back to the days where kids used to be excited about seeing officers, where officers were excited about engaging folks in the community, and not the latter of what we've seen here in recent years.
Sometimes it's really hard to parse for, the American people to parse through political rhetoric. So when it comes to this issue of rising crime and things like that, what are the people in your district saying about it? Is this a real issue to the people that you would potentially represent?
It absolutely is. All one has to do is look at the statistics. Our local police departments are great in terms of letting the public know of the crime that is happening, because the public has a right to know. And so the proof is in the pudding. We see it every single day, report after report, whether it's a shooting, whether it's a murder, whether it's a domestic incident. It's happening across the 7th district, and folks are tired. One of the most important things for people in my conversations that we're having is that folks want to live in safe and secure communities. You do not achieve this with the rhetoric of defunding the police and with the attacks that we've seen on members of law enforcement. So this is absolutely a real issue, and folks are paying attention to who really has been supportive of the police and who really means business when it comes to putting criminals away and not relaxing sentences and actually empowering the police to do their job, which is to serve and protect.
Yesli Vaga, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The State Department is issuing its highest level of travel warnings for the cities of Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Jilin province. The warning comes in the wake of rising CCP virus infections throughout the region. The State Department has issued a level 3 travel warning, which advises to reconsider travel for China as a whole. Hong Kong and Shanghai are the highest level, which is level 4, do not travel. The travel advisory notes the Chinese regime's zero-tolerance policy for the CCP virus. The State Department is warning travelers about arbitrary enforcement of local laws and the risk of parents and children being separated. Congressman Ralph Norman, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
My pleasure.
Congressman, with respect to ending of Title 42, which is coming up, or maybe coming up, there are also reports that they'll be sending mass releases of illegals into the country, with each of them receiving free smartphones. What do you make of this, and will they reverse course, do you think, due to the public backlash?
The Biden administration is completely to blame for this. This is a disaster. It's going to be hard for this country to turn around, Steve. When is it going to end? I mean, he's talking about gas cards, he's talking about the phones, and just like he had some insane excuse that it would allow the illegals to communicate with the Border Patrol agents as far as the dates to show back up. I mean, do they think the American people believe this? I mean, they know they're coming over illegally. They're not going through the legal process because the borders are completely open. So it's insane, and it's going to be hard to justify this along with everything else that this administration's doing.
Now, to your point, there was a CBS poll that was just conducted with over 60% of the people polled, including Democrats, in their disapproving of Biden's handling of the border. What are you hearing from your constituents on this matter?
Totally disgusted, because this is it's done intentionally, it's done recklessly, it's done with the hopes that the Democrats will keep power. Look what they did with the illegals that went to New York, that they gave a driver's license to and voted in the elections. This is an invasion of our border. He took an oath of office to protect and defend this country. He's not doing it. When you look at the mass numbers, that it used to be 1,000 coming across a day was a catastrophe and something to really be concerned about. We're looking at potentially 15 to 18,000 a day, which means 540,000 a month times 12. That's the population of South Carolina, 5.3 million. And, he has no intentions of stopping it. If he won't even send his vice president down there to look and see what's going on, it's an indication he's just going to let it go and let it play out like it will, which is so unfortunate for the American people.
Congressman Norman, you just made a couple of interesting points. Specifically, you talked about New York, what happened there, giving illegals eventually the right to vote. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick over the weekend said that it's just a matter of time until these millions of illegals are given green cards and then eventually a pathway to citizenship, thereby giving them the right to vote. Is this at the crux of the Biden administration's lack of desire to solve the border crisis, do you think?
It's a lack of desire to protect America, because it's not just those that are coming to get the green card and be a permanent citizen. Look at the drugs that are coming across. Look at the gangs that are coming across. Look at those that every police department in this country is going to have to deal with. And they're not going to know who they're arresting. They don't know who they're stopping. Yeah, he's intentionally doing this, and I don't think he's going to stop. I hope that all the states, which we all are now border states, because he's busing and flying on the taxpayers' dime these illegals to municipalities and cities all over the country. And so everybody's a border state now, and I'm hoping that there'll be a point in time when Texas particularly, because they're on the front lines, will take matters into their own hands and do what it takes to get the National Guard to stop it, to finish building the wall. And same with Arizona, New Mexico, and others.
Congressman Ralph Norman, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Democratic Senator Bernie Sanders recently held a hearing on what he's calling corporate greed's role in inflation. The Budget Committee chairman said that a handful of giant corporations controlled economic sectors without competition, allowing them to reap in big profits. Senator Rick Scott, concerned with government spending, asked experts if the United States could sustain $45 trillion in debt, which is outlined in President Biden's budget.
I know that the chairman believes that we can absorb more debt. I don't think on this. Nobody would do that in their personal life. Have all this excessive debt. So, can each of witnesses, can you tell me, is $45 trillion worth of debt too much for the United States to carry, or what number do y'all think is the right number?
Robert Reich, former labor secretary under Bill Clinton, stated that it could be sustained by taxing the rich and investments in the workforce. Finance professor Michael Faulkender said it could put the economy into a debt spiral.
We would have to print additional money to pay the interest expense, which is just going to increase interest rates even further and increase inflation.
Republican Senator Chuck Grassley said that misdiagnosing the reasons for inflation could have disastrous consequences and hoped we would learn from mistakes made in history. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is writing a book set to be released in November. The publisher says it will offer unvarnished appraisals of the deals made and characters encountered during Pompeo's service in the Trump administration. Pompeo, who is now 58 years old, made almost 50 diplomatic trips to 77 countries as Secretary of State. This included 3 trips to North Korea and Afghanistan and 1 visit to Russia and Ukraine. He accompanied former President Trump to meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Broadside Books, a conservative imprint at HarperCollins, will be the publisher.